The narcissist truly believed they had you exactly where they wanted you, silent, erased, and irrelevant. In their mind, you were supposed to disappear the moment they secured their shiny new supply. They expected you to retreat into the shadows, still wounded, still doubting yourself, still replaying their lies as if they were truth. But what they never saw coming, what shakes them to their core, is the fact that the new supply is starting to wake up, and that awakening isn't quiet, gentle, or convenient. It's dangerous, because it begins with curiosity, the one thing a narcissist cannot control. The new supply starts noticing things that don't add up. The narcissist says they escaped a toxic relationship, but their actions contradict every heroic story they tell. Their mood changes too fast. Their explanations feel scripted. Their stories feel copied and pasted. And then the new supply feels a pull, an instinct, a whisper that says, "Something's off, go, look deeper." So they do. And nothing terrifies a narcissist more than someone looking behind the curtain. The moment the new supply checks your name, your old photos, your mutual connections, your online presence, the narcissist feels the ground beneath them crack, because the smear campaign they worked so hard to maintain suddenly becomes unstable. Their victim narrative begins to wobble. Their version of the past starts looking manufactured. The new supply sees traces of who you were before the narcissist drained you. They see your kindness, your stability, your loyalty. They see that you are not the monster the narcissist described. If anything, you look like the one who tried, the one who endured, the one who held everything together while the narcissist created chaos. And that's when the new supply begins forming a plan. Not a plan to harm you, not a plan to compete with you, but a plan to understand what really happened. This is the danger. Their curiosity isn't dying, it's growing. And the narcissist feels it. Their voice tightens. Their love bombing increases. Their lies grow more dramatic. They accidentally bring you up, testing the new supply's reactions, trying to poison their perception before they can piece together the truth. But the new supply is already watching. They're noticing the manipulation. They're noticing the way questions make the narcissist explode. They're noticing how every X is described as crazy, yet the narcissist is always the common denominator. They're noticing that the narcissist's stories about you change depending on the day, the mood, or the attention they want. And the narcissist knows one terrifying fact. If the new supply contacts you even once, everything collapses. Their lies, their image, their power, their entire illusion. You could confirm every contradiction. You could explain every cycle. You could reveal the truth behind the mask they keep polished for new victims. So yes, the narcissist is shaking. Not out of love, not out of heartbreak, but out of fear that the person they replaced you with might become the person who exposes them completely. The narcissist feels the pressure tightening around them, because the new supply has begun observing patterns that were never meant to be noticed. At first, these observations appear small. A strange tone in the narcissist's voice when your name accidentally slips out. A sudden defensiveness when simple questions are asked. A tension that fills the room whenever the past is mentioned. But these small observations begin forming a trail, and the new supply quietly follows it. They start noticing that the narcissist becomes unusually irritated when asked to clarify dates do not match. Events shift depending on the mood. The stories about past relationships sound overly rehearsed, delivered with emotion that feels artificial. The narcissist claims to hate drama, yet somehow always mentions conflict. They claim every ex was unstable, yet their reactions reveal someone accustomed to conflict they caused themselves. And this is where the new supply begins shaping a plan of their own. Not a loud plan, not a confrontational one, but a silent strategy born from caution and intuition. They decide to compare the narcissist's stories with actual reality. They decide to observe instead of absorb. They decide to listen, not to the narcissist's words, but to the inconsistencies hiding behind those words. Curiosity hardens into suspicion. Suspicion turns into research, and research leads them right back to you. They study your photos. They read your old posts. They see the life you built long before the narcissist entered it. They see the peace you carried before it was drained. They see the happiness in your eyes before the storms. And the most dangerous realization of all begins forming inside them. You do not look like someone who caused destruction. You look like someone who survived it. This understanding shakes the foundation of everything the narcissist has been feeding them. It makes them question, if you were truly what the narcissist described, why does your presence feel calm, grounded, and steady? Why do you look like someone who gave more than you received? Why does the narcissist seem nervous whenever your name is mentioned? The new supply starts observing the narcissist more closely. They notice how quickly anger surfaces. They notice how often blame shifts. They notice how the narcissist avoids accountability with practiced ease. And then comes the moment that terrifies the narcissist the most. The new supply starts imagining what it must have been like for you. They begin seeing themselves slowly falling into the same patterns. They begin seeing the same manipulation tactics aimed at them. They begin recognizing the same emotional traps forming around their own heart. The narcissist senses this awareness. Their control weakens. Their charm fades. Their confidence cracks. They start over-explaining their past in an effort to regain authority. They suddenly portray themselves as deeply wounded, misunderstood, and noble. But the new supply has already seen too much. Something has shifted. Something has awakened. And the narcissist knows that if the new supply continues digging into your story, the truth will eventually rise to the surface. They can feel the walls closing in, because the one thing they depend on, complete emotional control, slipping from their grasp. And the more the new supply learns about you, the more the narcissist fears losing everything they constructed through lies, manipulation, and illusion. The narcissist begins to sense a shift in the atmosphere, a subtle change in the way the new supply looks at them. It is not open rebellion, not yet. It is something quieter, something that unsettles the narcissist far more than anger ever could. It is awareness. The new supply is no longer fully absorbed in the narcissist's charm. They are watching, listening, analyzing, and that alone is enough to make the narcissist restless. They try to recover control with exaggerated affection, sudden compliments, dramatic stories about how deeply they were hurt in the past. But the new supply sees the way these moments appear at convenient times, as if the narcissist is performing rather than expressing. They notice that affection suddenly appears whenever the narcissist feels questioned. They notice that tears arrive only when accountability is required. They notice that apologies are offered without real change. And then the most dangerous realization begins forming. The narcissist is repeating old patterns. These patterns are not new. They do not belong to the new supply alone. They belonged to someone before them. They belonged to you. And now the new supply begins wondering how many times these same words, these same gestures, these same rehearsed lines were used on you. That thought alone terrifies the narcissist, because it means the new supply has begun doing the one thing a narcissist fears above all: comparing. Comparison destroys illusions. Comparison exposes inconsistencies. Comparison makes the narcissist lose their position as the center of the new supply's world. And once comparison begins, distance follows. The new supply starts seeing how the narcissist's moods shift based on attention rather than truth. They notice how kindness is used as currency, given only when it benefits the narcissist. They notice how every disagreement is twisted into an attack, how every boundary is treated as a threat, how every independent thought is punished with coldness or withdrawal. And as these observations grow, the new supply begins to feel something they cannot ignore: empathy for you. They imagine the confusion you must have felt when the narcissist alternated between warmth and cruelty. They imagine the exhaustion of trying to hold a relationship together while the narcissist blamed you for every flaw they carried inside themselves. They imagine the pain of being abandoned the moment you questioned the lies. And suddenly, the new supply realizes they are stepping into the exact same story the narcissist claimed to have escaped. This realization becomes a quiet warning inside their heart. It guides them to look deeper into the truth you lived. It pushes them to question everything the narcissist ever said about you. And the narcissist feels the shift. They sense the new supply slipping from their emotional grasp. Their voice becomes sharper. Their demands become heavier. Their efforts to control become more desperate. They blame you more frequently, hoping to rebuild the wall between you and the new supply. But the wall is already cracking. The new supply is already peering through the gaps. They have seen too much, felt too much, realized too much. And the narcissist can no longer stop what is coming next. The new supply is preparing to uncover the full truth about you. And once they see it, everything the narcissist constructed will begin to crumble. The narcissist now finds themselves walking on unstable ground, sensing that the new supply is no longer under their full control. There is a new silence in the room, a thoughtful stillness that unsettles the narcissist more than any argument. The new supply is thinking. They are connecting dots. They are quietly replaying past moments that did not make sense before. And the narcissist can feel the weight of those realizations pressing against the fragile illusion they built. In an attempt to regain dominance, the narcissist tries to rewrite history again. They insist that you were obsessive, unstable, or jealous, hoping these exaggerated labels will bury the truth. But the new supply notices how quickly these descriptions change. One day, you were supposedly furious and unreasonable. The next day, you were overly emotional. And on another day, the narcissist claims you never cared at all. These contradictions create more questions than answers. The new supply realizes that the narcissist is describing a different version of you, depending on what emotion they want to provoke. Such inconsistency is not a reflection of you, but a reflection of the narcissist's inner chaos. And each inconsistency becomes another thread. The new supply follows back toward truth. The narcissist senses this shift and becomes increasingly reactive. They start questioning the new supply's loyalty. They demand constant reassurance. They accuse the new supply of being distant, when in reality, the new supply is simply thinking more deeply than before. They begin monitoring what the new supply looks at online, what they post, whose profiles they visit. Suspicion grows into paranoia, but the paranoia is fueled by one fear only: the possibility that the new supply might reach out to you. That possibility terrifies the narcissist because they know a single, honest conversation could reveal the entire pattern they have been hiding. One conversation would expose the manipulation, the shifting stories, the emotional traps, and the cycles they repeated with both of you. So the narcissist tries everything to keep that connection from happening. They portray themselves as the ultimate victim. They bring tears into conversations. They talk about being misunderstood, abandoned, or mistreated by everyone who came before. But the new supply notices how every story places the narcissist in the position of the hero or the martyr. They notice how the narcissist never takes responsibility, never expresses remorse, never acknowledges harm unless it benefits them. And then the new supply begins asking quiet questions. How is it possible that every X was the problem? Why does the narcissist become angry when asked simple questions? Why does their story fall apart whenever details matter? And most importantly, how could someone as calm and grounded as you turn into the villain the narcissist described? These questions fill the new supply's mind like pieces of a puzzle, gradually forming a larger picture. And the narcissist feels the panic rising. They attempt to rebuild control through extravagant gestures, sudden affection, or dramatic apologies. But these attempts no longer have the same effect because the new supply now sees the intention behind them. What once felt like love now feels like strategy. What once felt like connection now feels like manipulation. And the narcissist knows they are running out of time. The truth is getting closer. The new supply is awakening, and their next move is one the narcissist cannot stop. They are preparing to uncover what really happened to you, no matter how deeply the narcissist tried to bury it. The narcissist senses the change, growing stronger, and this time it is no longer a quiet shift, but a deep internal movement inside the new supply. Something has awakened. Something has become clear. The new supply now sees the narcissist not as a wounded soul needing rescue, but as someone who repeatedly injures the hearts entrusted to them. This shift in perception sends fear through the narcissist because their power depends entirely on being admired, pitied, or believed. Once that belief fades, their influence collapses. The new supply begins paying closer attention to the way the narcissist reacts to simple boundaries. A small request for space turns into an accusation. A calm question becomes a threat. A moment of independence is twisted into betrayal. And with every reaction, the new supply sees more clearly the emotional traps that once held you captive. These observations become a mirror showing the narcissist's true nature. The new supply sees the same pattern you endured, the grand promises that never came true, the affection that appeared only when the narcissist wanted something, the sudden withdrawal meant to punish and control. What once seemed like sensitivity now looks like manipulation. What once appeared as passion now looks like entitlement. What once felt like connection now feels like captivity. And the narcissist senses that their mask is slipping. Their tone becomes sharper. Their gestures become more dramatic. Their explanations become more desperate. They attempt to regain control through guilt, through confusion, through exaggerated claims of loyalty. But the new supply no longer absorbs these tactics the way they once did. Instead, they analyze them. They study them. They see the intention behind each emotional twist. And this ability to see clearly is what terrifies the narcissist the most, because clarity is the enemy of manipulation. The new supply begins reflecting on the ways the narcissist described you. Every insult now appears calculated. Every accusation now looks like projection. Every negative story now feels like a deliberate attempt to conceal the narcissist's own behavior. Slowly, the new supply realizes that the narcissist was not trying to warn them about you. The narcissist was trying to hide the truth you could confirm. This understanding becomes a turning point. The new supply sees that the moment they begin questioning the narrative, the narcissist becomes fearful, defensive, and unstable. This reaction reveals everything. It shows that the narcissist never wanted truth. They wanted obedience. They never wanted understanding. They wanted control. They never wanted to heal. They wanted to dominate the story. The new supply's awareness grows stronger as they compare the calm energy surrounding your presence with the turmoil that always surrounds the narcissist. They begin asking themselves who truly carried peace and who carried chaos. And the answer becomes more obvious each day. As clarity increases, the narcissist becomes frantic. They sense the loss of influence. They sense the unraveling of their crafted image. And most importantly, they sense that the new supply is no longer afraid to see the truth. What happens next is the moment they cannot prevent. The new supply is preparing to look directly into the past the narcissist tried so hard to hide. And once they step into that truth, the entire illusion will begin to collapse. What the narcissist once considered a loyal ally, the new supply, is now the greatest threat to their fragile kingdom. Every smile, every compliment, every display of affection the narcissist once relied on to control perception now feels like a countdown to exposure. The new supply observes carefully, noticing the subtle cracks in the narcissist's stories. They see the half-truths, the contradictions, the silent evasions that were invisible at first but are now impossible to ignore. The narcissist senses the tension growing, though they cannot name it. They feel a coldness creeping into the relationship, a distance that wasn't there before. And it terrifies them because it is unfamiliar. For the narcissist, unfamiliarity is dangerous. It signals a loss of control. The new supply begins to ask questions that the narcissist cannot answer without revealing themselves. The same defenses that worked on you, excuses, charm, manipulation, begin to fail. Every attempt to maintain the illusion only accelerates the unraveling. The narcissist starts to feel trapped, realizing that the person they thought would be easily molded into obedience is developing insight, discernment, and courage. And courage is something they cannot dominate. They attempt to redirect, to regain influence, but their energy only reveals more of the truth. The more they insist, the more their insecurities surface. The narcissist realizes that the new supply is noticing patterns, timing, and intentions that confirm what they have always suspected but never wanted to acknowledge. Their behavior is destructive, dishonest, and self-serving. Every plan to suppress the truth is met with questions, every lie challenged by observation, and the narcissist begins to tremble, not publicly, not openly, but inside, in the quiet corners of their mind. They feel the pressure of being watched, of being analyzed, and the realization dawns that the person they underestimated is now holding the mirror to their soul. Fear replaces confidence. Pride becomes paranoia. What once felt like control now feels like imprisonment. The narcissist cannot retreat without admitting weakness, cannot attack without revealing guilt, cannot continue the performance without risking exposure. Every moment of their day becomes a calculation, a careful dance to prevent the new supply from uncovering the truth. And yet, the more they try, the more obvious their fear becomes. Every gesture is scrutinized, every word weighed, every silence interpreted. The narcissist starts to sense that the new supply knows more than they should. They feel themselves shrinking under the unseen pressure. What they thought was loyalty now feels like judgment. What they thought was admiration now feels like evidence. And at the heart of this shift is one undeniable fact. The new supply is becoming an instrument of divine revelation. What they intended for protection, for validation, for control, is now turning into exposure, into accountability, into consequences. The narcissist may not yet understand the full scope, but the collapse has begun. Every action taken against you, every lie told, every betrayal committed is now mirrored back to them in ways they cannot escape. And the moment that awareness becomes fully conscious, the narcissist's empire begins to crumble. The person they thought would secure their illusion now destabilizes it completely, showing that deception always carries a cost. And those who manipulate others are eventually trapped by their own schemes. As the narcissist watches the new supply act with discernment, a subtle but undeniable shift begins. The confidence they once carried as a cloak now feels like a weight pressing down on their chest. They begin to notice the scrutiny in her gaze, the way she measures words, and the quiet way she records behavior without needing to confront it openly. Every interaction becomes a test, every casual comment a potential trap. And the narcissist realizes that the person they once underestimated is not easily fooled. This growing awareness in the new supply makes them uneasy. The control they relied on is slipping through their fingers. They attempt to regain influence through charm, through promises, through small manipulations, but each effort backfires. The new supply has already begun to piece together a pattern, and in her observations, the truth about the narcissist's character begins to emerge clearly. The narcissist senses it. Instinctively, they feel the tension, the disapproval, the quiet judgment that grows in every moment. And that tension spreads like wildfire through their sense of stability. The narcissist's arrogance, which once insulated them from reality, now isolates them further. They begin to see themselves reflected in the eyes of someone who refuses to be deceived. Panic grows quietly, a slow-burning fear that they cannot shake. They feel caught between wanting to retreat and needing to maintain a facade. Every misstep now seems amplified, every hesitation exposed. They begin to question themselves. Was the new supply always this perceptive, or has something changed? Is this intuition divine, or just coincidence? Either way, the narcissist cannot ignore it. Their mind becomes a battlefield. Thoughts of past manipulations, lies, and betrayals resurface, and they realize that the new supply may hold the key to unveiling everything they tried to conceal. And the most frightening part, she does not need to act aggressively. Her very presence, her quiet awareness, her refusal to be deceived becomes the source of their unraveling. Each day, the narcissist walks in a heightened state of alert, anticipating confrontation that may never come, yet feeling its inevitability. Every lie they whispered, every secret they thought hidden, now trembles on the edge of revelation. And as this awareness grows, a spiritual dimension begins to manifest. The universe, or God's hand, orchestrates events with subtlety. Situations arise that reveal the narcissist's duplicity. Opportunities for exposure appear naturally, as if guided by a force beyond human manipulation. The narcissist experiences the consequences of their own choices quietly but relentlessly. What they thought would protect them, the new supplies affection. Her trust has become the instrument of their awakening, and every attempt to regain control is thwarted by her discernment, by her spiritual insight, and by her unwillingness to accept anything less than the truth. The narcissist becomes trapped in a paradox. The very person they relied on to maintain an illusion is the one illuminating reality, and in that illumination, their fear deepens. They begin to feel the unraveling from within, a slow, persistent anxiety that nothing they do can erase. Every lie becomes heavier, every excuse more transparent, every smile less convincing. And as the new supply continues to observe, to reflect, to embody truth, the narcissist's world narrows into a silent panic. The very stage they built to perform, to manipulate, to control, now becomes a prison from which they cannot escape. They are shaking, not because of physical threat, but because spiritual revelation has begun, and there is no hiding from the light. Have you ever noticed how the proud always find amusement in the pain of others? It is one of the darkest traits of the arrogant heart to laugh at what the righteous endure, as if heaven is blind. That is exactly what this couple did. They mocked you. They celebrated your confusion. They turned your trust into a punchline and your faith into something to be ridiculed. But laughter born of cruelty always echoes back at first. Their laughter seemed harmless, just words, whispers, jokes told behind closed doors. They mocked your hope, your prayers, your patience. They mistook your gentleness for naivety and your forgiveness for weakness. But they did not know the sacred truth written in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 5. Whoever mocks the poor shows contempt for their Maker. Whoever gloats over disaster will not go unpunished. The faithful heart is not foolish. It sees pain, it feels betrayal, yet it refuses to return evil for evil. That restraint, that spiritual self-control, is what separates you from them. You did not fight back, not because you were afraid, but because you were preserved. The Lord often hides his chosen ones beneath silence, while he measures the deeds of the wicked. Those who mock the faithful are mocking the one who dwells within them, and that is a dangerous place to stand. The couple believed their new alliance made them untouchable. They whispered to each other, "See, nothing happened. We are fine." But heaven's silence was not approval, it was warning. Every laugh they shared at your expense became a seed of consequence waiting to bloom in its appointed season. There is something deeply spiritual about mockery. It is not just words. It is rebellion against divine order. When the heart mocks purity, it invites darkness to sit upon its throne. When it laughs at truth, it calls deception its friend. They laughed, yes, but that laughter carried a sound only heaven could interpret. It was not joy, it was arrogance. And arrogance always precedes the fall. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18 reminds us, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." While they were busy celebrating their deceit, their downfall was already set in motion. Heaven never allows mockery to go unanswered. For every time they laughed at your faith, there will come a moment when their own tears will echo in the same place where their laughter once rang. But this is not about vengeance. It is about justice. It is about balance, the divine law that what is sown in arrogance must be reaped in humility. You do not need to defend yourself. Heaven is already doing that for you. There will come a day when they remember every word they spoke, every moment they mocked, and shame will wrap around them like a cloak. Do not let bitterness dwell in your spirit. Let peace remain. Because peace is not weakness, it is strength under divine authority. The faithful rise by waiting, and those who mocked them will soon bow under the weight of conviction. You are being positioned for restoration, even while they are being prepared for reckoning. Their laughter will soon fade into silence, not because someone silenced them, but because truth took away their stage. Their own choices will correct them in ways no one else could. And when that time comes, you will not need to say a word. Your peace will speak for you. Your endurance will testify that grace is stronger than cruelty. For those who mocked the faithful will face the one thing they never expected, the mirror of their own actions. And in that mirror, their smiles will disappear, because soon, what they built on arrogance will begin to crack beneath the weight of divine truth. Fear, subtle but insistent, begins to gnaw at the narcissist's composure. The new supply no longer simply admires, no longer simply participates in the story they tried to write. She watches, she listens, she calculates. Every gesture, every word, every silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back the deception, the pride, the manipulation they once wore like armor. What was once a playground of control has transformed into a battlefield of exposure. The narcissist feels it in quiet moments, the ones they once believed safe. Alone in thought, memories of past betrayals and lies rise like ghosts, unbidden and relentless. The laughter that accompanied their schemes is gone, replaced by an internal tremor, a sense of being cornered by the very person who was meant to validate them. This is the dangerous plan of the new supply. Not loud, not confrontational, but profound. She doesn't need to accuse. She doesn't need to fight. Her awareness, her refusal to participate in deception, becomes a weapon far sharper than words. The narcissist begins to notice small, almost imperceptible details, the way she questions softly, the way she keeps records of inconsistencies, the way she does not allow appearances to overshadow reality. Every action now carries the weight of accountability, and that weight crushes the narcissist's once inflated sense of invincibility. They try to manipulate, to charm, to gaslight, but it is as if every effort is met with an invisible wall they cannot penetrate. The new supplies plan is not vengeance. It is revelation. And revelation, in its quiet, persistent way, unmasks the hidden. The narcissist experiences a creeping paranoia. They check their words, measure their gestures, second-guess intentions. And yet, no matter how carefully they move, they sense the collapse. Their power has shifted. What they called loyalty is now doubt. What they called passion is now pressure. Every attempt to regain dominance only deepens the impression of instability. Even the people around them begin to notice the subtle cracks. The charm that once persuaded now rings hollow. The trust that once swayed now questions. And in the silence between conversations, the narcissist hears the echo of the one they tried to erase. Your presence lingers, not as confrontation, not as accusation, but as a quiet truth they cannot escape. And the new supply channels that truth, intentionally or not, into a form that exposes what the narcissist tried so desperately to hide. The narcissist feels the unraveling, a slow, unrelenting awareness that their control is failing. Fear replaces confidence. Anxiety replaces cunning. Pride, once a shield, now becomes a cage. They sense the consequences of every lie, every betrayal, every manipulation converging, and there is no escape. And yet, this is not chaos, it is order in motion. God's justice, subtle but inevitable, orchestrates this exposure. Every observation, every truth revealed, every moment of accountability builds a sequence that the narcissist cannot manipulate. The new supply, in her vigilance, becomes the instrument of divine timing, the quiet mechanism through which lies collapse and reality asserts itself. And as the narcissist trembles internally, they begin to realize that what they sought to control is now controlling them. Their world is no longer a stage for performance. It is a cage of their own making, held together by fear, unraveling with each passing day, each quiet revelation, each truth observed. And in that cage, they are learning, slowly and painfully, that the cost of deceit is heavier than they ever imagined. The narcissist now lives in a tension they cannot escape. Every room they enter feels charged with the presence of truth, a weight they cannot shift with charm or manipulation. The new supply's awareness has transformed their once comfortable world into a realm of uncertainty. She notices patterns, remembers details, and holds silent observations that, without confrontation, cut deeper than any accusation could. What was once playful and deceptive now becomes evidence of their own unraveling. They begin to question every choice, every word spoken, every glance shared. Fear whispers at the edges of their consciousness, and pride struggles to silence it. The more they try to assert control, the more they feel trapped by the very tactics they once employed to dominate others. Even attempts to manipulate the new supply backfire, revealing inconsistencies and exposing motives they hoped would remain hidden. Every lie is mirrored back in subtle ways they cannot dismiss. The narcissist senses the shift in energy around them. The admiration and compliance they once commanded are gone. Instead, vigilance and quiet accountability occupy the space. The new supply does not need to confront them directly. Her presence, her observation, her refusal to participate in falsehood becomes a constant reminder that control is no longer theirs. Fear has replaced thrill. Paranoia has replaced certainty. Confidence has dissolved into anxiety. And in the quiet moments, when they believed they were alone, The memories of the past, the betrayal, the manipulation, the disregard for truth rise unbidden. The narcissist realizes that every action once taken to suppress accountability now contributes to their unease. Their carefully constructed persona, the mask that hid insecurity and deceit, begins to crack. They cannot hide from the truth reflected in her eyes or the silent clarity she embodies. The new supply becomes a mirror of divine justice, a living witness to the consequences of deceit. The narcissist feels the weight of divine timing in ways they cannot articulate. Every attempt to regain power or assert control only highlights their weakness. The very energy they tried to harness to dominate has turned against them, and yet they remain blind to the spiritual orchestration behind their unraveling. It is not chaos, it is precision. Every observation, every subtle accountability, every quiet act of discernment orchestrates the collapse of deception. The narcissist's world is shrinking. What they once believed was loyalty now reads as doubt. What they once believed was passion now feels like pressure. Every attempt to manipulate or gaslight is met with a subtle resistance they cannot navigate. The walls of their constructed reality close in. And through it all, the narcissist becomes increasingly aware that your presence, though absent, remains the anchor of their fear. Your truth, your peace, your endurance reverberates in the space around them, amplified by the new supply's vigilance. They see it in subtle gestures, in quiet words, in the way she measures their actions against reality. And with every passing day, every quiet observation, every truth she holds, they feel the walls of their deception tighten, the weight of accountability grow, and the slow unraveling of control begin. Divine justice moves silently, unassailable, and unstoppable, reshaping the world in ways the narcissist cannot prevent or comprehend. The collapse is no longer subtle. The narcissist senses that the energy around them has changed, a tension that cannot be ignored or manipulated away. The new supply, once a source of admiration and temporary validation, has become the agent of exposure. She sees through the layers of charm, the practiced smiles, and the rehearsed words. Every lie they once told with ease now trembles under her observation. The narcissist begins to notice the inconsistencies, the small cracks in the narrative they worked so hard to maintain. With each passing day, the sense of control that once intoxicated them fades, replaced by a gnawing anxiety that they cannot shake. Nights, once filled with confident, dreaming, and careless delight, are now restless, haunted by their own thoughts and the invisible mirror she holds up to their actions. She does not accuse. She does not confront loudly. She simply observes, remembers, and remains unshaken by the storms they hoped to create. Her presence becomes a quiet, relentless pressure. The narcissist, accustomed to bending others to their will, now experiences the reverse. Every word measured, every glance weighed, every movement scrutinized. And they know, deep in the recesses of conscience, they refuse to acknowledge that your absence has grown louder than their presence. The truth they buried has become an echo, resonating in the very spaces they occupy. They try to escape it through distraction, charm, or even anger, but each attempt merely amplifies the weight of exposure. The new supply's awareness, combined with the memory of what you represented, creates a perfect storm of accountability they cannot avoid. They wanted freedom without consequence, thrill without responsibility, admiration without sincerity. But every seed of deceit they planted now returns to confront them. Their strategies to manipulate, to divert, to control, fail because the spiritual principle they defy is unshakable. What is hidden will be revealed. What is twisted will unravel. Fear replaces pleasure. Suspicion replaces loyalty. Confidence collapses into doubt. And through it all, your name, your peace, your endurance remains untouchable. The narcissist cannot silence it, cannot bury it, cannot replace it. Every reaction of the new supply, every subtle resistance, every quiet insistence on truth mirrors back the consequences they tried to avoid. Divine justice is at work, not with chaos, not with force, but with a slow, unstoppable precision. What they intended for destruction has turned inward. They walk through the ruins of their own making, and the landscape is familiar to all who witnessed the betrayal. The thrill of control has become the weight of confinement. The games once played for amusement now dictate the boundaries of their life. And yet, you remain outside this collapse, untouched, serene, and steady. Your stillness has become a spotlight, revealing the emptiness of deception and the brilliance of truth. The more they scramble to assert dominance, the more they stumble over the remnants of what they thought they could erase. Divine justice is not reactive. It is inevitable. What was designed to harm has already been transformed into testimony, and the narcissist, unaware of the spiritual orchestration, feels only the tightening of consequences they cannot avoid or understand. Every whisper of your name, every memory they cannot silence, becomes a measure of what they lost, a reflection of the walls closing in. They are trapped by their own choices, haunted by the truth, and observed by the one they never truly knew how to control. The unraveling continues quietly, yet its force is undeniable. Every small action of the narcissist now carries the weight of exposure. The new supply, once captivated by illusion, has begun to recognize the patterns, the manipulations, the carefully constructed lies. She notices the hesitation in his gaze, the faltering confidence in his voice, the way he pauses when your name surfaces, even in passing. Each moment of revelation is a brick in the invisible prison surrounding him, a reminder that control is no longer his to command. The narcissist, who thrived on dominance and deception, experiences the very fear they instilled in others. They feel the walls tightening, the ground shifting beneath them, the subtle pressures of divine justice taking form. They cannot escape, because every choice they made to elevate themselves has now become a chain. Every deceit, every betrayal, every attempt to manipulate reality returns to confront them, reflecting their own image back with unflinching clarity. And the new supply, unwittingly or divinely, enforces that reflection. She mirrors back the consequences of his pride, her awareness magnifying the discomfort he cannot hide. No longer does he feel invincible. The laughter that once echoed with careless delight is replaced by murmurs of worry, the confident steps now faltering. He notices how words he once used to charm now sound hollow, how every claim of affection is shadowed by the memory of what he destroyed. Every smile she casts no longer carries admiration but scrutiny, a quiet judgment he cannot evade. And all the while, your name, the memory of your patience, your strength, your peace, reverberates as an invisible echo in the spaces they occupy. The narcissist cannot reconcile the fact that what they tried to erase continues to exist without bitterness, without effort, without seeking revenge. Your stillness is their torment, your quiet endurance, their unseen indictment. What they meant to suppress becomes the very measure of their unraveling. Divine justice, patient and precise, does not announce itself with spectacle. It moves slowly, like a river carving through stone, unseen until the moment the landscape has changed irreversibly. The new supplies, actions, her awareness, her insistence on truth act as instruments of that justice. What she perceives as her own observation is part of a higher orchestration. Every plan they attempt to execute now contains within it the seed of exposure. Every manipulation, every attempt to twist reality only tightens the net around them. And still, you remain untouched. Your life continues in the rhythm of peace and purpose, while theirs collapses under the weight of their own design. Your testimony is rising quietly, unseen by the world, but unmistakably clear in the spiritual balance being restored. They are trapped in their own maze, haunted by the very absence they tried to impose on you, surrounded by the consequences of choices made in pride and deception. Every thought of escape, every attempt to regain control, only confirms the truth they cannot deny. What they built on manipulation has no foundation strong enough to withstand the light of integrity, patience, and divine timing. You are the calm in the storm, the proof of endurance, the living witness that what was meant for harm can be transformed into testimony. The narcissist is learning, perhaps too late, that freedom without righteousness is captivity, and deception always circles back to confront its creator. As the days unfold, the narcissist realizes that every attempt to control the situation only tightens the grip of their own entanglement. The new supply, acting under instincts or perhaps divine guidance, begins to impose boundaries they cannot evade. Each demand for proof, each questioning glance, each subtle confrontation reflects a reality he cannot manipulate. The very energy he once wielded to dominate has reversed, now pushing back against him. The walls of his carefully built illusion crumble under observation, as if the spirit of truth itself is dismantling the stage he once commanded. The presence of your name, your peace, your unwavering calm becomes a constant reminder that deception cannot endure. Every thought of you intrudes silently but relentlessly, showing him the life he could never truly possess, the integrity he could never claim, the love he once rejected. What he thought was advantaged the distance, the replacement, the new supply becomes evidence of his downfall. Fear has replaced confidence, uncertainty has replaced arrogance, and guilt shadows every step. He wonders, silently, in moments of private reflection, why the life he engineered for control now feels like a trap. The new supply may act out of her own ambition, jealousy, or insecurity, but unwittingly, she becomes the vessel of divine justice. She reflects back the truth he cannot face, that no manipulation, no charm, no calculated move can erase what was genuine, what was chosen by God, what was protected by grace. The narcissist begins to see that the pleasure of deception has dissolved, leaving only the bitterness of exposure. Every attempt to assert dominance is met with resistance. Every lie is caught, every omission noted. And in the midst of this, your life remains a testament to patience and endurance. You did not chase, you did not retaliate. Yet your existence in faith and steadfastness becomes the living mirror of their failure. They are learning, slowly and painfully, that power built on falsehood is fragile, that control without righteousness is empty, that influence gained through manipulation eventually collapses under the weight of truth. The new supply may attempt to claim victory, but she cannot replace the spiritual resonance you carry, the quiet strength that whispers without words, the enduring peace that speaks louder than any accusation or rumor. This is the divine paradox, the one they sought to use, to erase, to control, remains untouched, while the instruments of their own schemes now reflect the consequences of pride and deceit. The narcissist stands, observing the crumbling of their own narrative, the reversal of the story they tried to write, and realizes that freedom without truth is imprisonment. Each day brings new lessons. Each confrontation reveals another corner of their own conscience, and each reminder of your life, your faith, your patience, becomes a living testimony they cannot escape. The chaos they hoped would silence your influence now amplifies it. The manipulations meant to secure comfort now secure only awareness. And as they navigate the tension between fear and pride, between guilt and self-preservation, one truth becomes undeniable. Divine justice does not act hastily, but it acts with precision, and every choice made in deception will return in measure, exposing the emptiness of control and the inevitability of truth. The unraveling continues, and the narcissist feels the pressure mounting from every angle. What was once a game of manipulation now feels like a maze with no exit. The new supply, whether aware or not, enforces boundaries, questions motives, and refuses to participate in the illusions that once empowered him. Each encounter becomes a mirror, reflecting not only his lies but the emptiness behind them. He starts noticing how fleeting control truly is when it is built on deception. Every word meant to charm or deflect is met with suspicion. Every gesture intended to dominate is measured and mirrored back. The energy that once flowed from him outward now bounces back, amplified and sharp. He senses it in the tension, in the hesitation, in the weight of unspoken truths hanging between them. The narcissist realizes that fear has taken root in the same soil where arrogance once thrived. He experiences it in the silence of unreturned texts, in the intensity of questioning, in the invisible walls closing around him. The new supply becomes an unwitting agent of exposure, revealing cracks he had assumed would remain hidden. And as this unfolds, he cannot escape the thought of you. Your name, your example, your quiet endurance remains a constant presence in his consciousness. It is no longer about longing or desire. It is a relentless reminder of what he betrayed, what he ignored, and what he cannot reclaim. The irony is palpable. The very presence he tried to erase has become the standard against which he measures failure. Every effort to manipulate now reinforces the reality of his loss. Every interaction with the new supply confirms what he cannot articulate. The peace he sought in deception is unattainable. The satisfaction he craved in control is impossible, and the love he rejected cannot be imitated or replaced. Divine justice is at work quietly, methodically, without spectacle. It does not rush, it does not showiness, it does not announce itself. Yet the results are undeniable. The narcissist becomes trapped within his own patterns, a prisoner of choices made in rebellion, while the consequences unfold around him. The new supply, driven by her own envy and misunderstanding, becomes a force of revelation, unknowingly aligning with divine order. Her suspicions, confrontations, and demands act as instruments, exposing what cannot remain hidden. And while all this transpires, your life remains untouched and unshaken. Your calm is the contrast that highlights their unraveling. Your steady presence demonstrates what cannot be claimed through deceit. They see it, they feel it, and they cannot comprehend it. The walls of control crumble, the masks slip, and the echoes of your truth resound louder than any attempt to silence them. What they intended as comfort and victory has become exposure and fear. Every plan they laid, every story they spun, returns to them as evidence, as a reflection of the choices they made in disregard of righteousness. This is the slow, inevitable work of divine justice. It is precise, patient, and unassailable. And in this moment, the narcissist realizes that the power he once held was only an illusion, a shadow over a life he could not truly possess. Meanwhile, your life stands as testimony, an unshakable demonstration that truth, patience, and faith prevail over manipulation, envy, and deceit. The story they tried to control is now being written in reverse, and the final chapters will belong not to fear and pride, but to steadfastness, peace, and divine resolution. As the dust settles and the echoes of chaos fade, a remarkable stillness emerges. The narcissist, once confident, now trembles under the weight of their own choices. The new supply, driven by envy and fear, discovers that her efforts to dominate and control are futile against the unseen power guiding truth. Every lie they uttered, every scheme they devised, has returned as a mirror of their own weakness. And yet, through this unfolding, you remain untouched, seated in peace that cannot be shaken by deception or envy. This is not merely survival, it is divine vindication. Your life, once targeted for disruption, has become a sanctuary of calm, wisdom, and restored purpose. The walls of light around you are not physical but spiritual, a barrier built by faith, endurance, and unshakable truth. They cannot penetrate it, no matter how cunning, because it is anchored in righteousness and fortified by consistency. Every act of plotting against you has only served to illuminate your strength, to reveal that no human manipulation can surpass divine protection. You walk forward, not with anger, not with resentment, but with a profound understanding of the principles of justice. The narcissist's fear and the new supply's confusion are reminders of what happens when pride, deceit, and manipulation confront the immutable law of truth. It is not vengeance that has delivered this outcome. It is alignment with righteousness, a patient orchestration that allows their own actions to become their teacher. The lesson is clear. What is built on deception cannot endure, and what is founded in faith, patience, and integrity stands firm even when tested. This is the wisdom of heaven at work, turning betrayal into clarity, chaos into insight, and attempts at harm into proofs of protection. You have not needed to speak. You have not needed to act. Every calm moment, every prayer, every instance of trust has become a shield, a demonstration of how divine order reverses what was meant to wound into a testimony of endurance. And now, as the narcissist confronts the consequences of their choices, and the new supply faces the futility of her efforts, a greater truth emerges. Peace is not dependent on human behavior. It exists independently, nurtured by faith, sustained by integrity, and revealed through divine orchestration. You are the living embodiment of that principle. The betrayals that once threatened to unmoor your soul now serve as stepping stones to restoration. Every trial has reinforced your alignment with truth. Every manipulation has highlighted the strength of your spirit, and every shadow cast by envy or deceit has only illuminated your light. And so, as this chapter closes, it leaves behind not bitterness, not regret, not obsession with what has passed, but a profound calm, a testimony of resilience, and a vision of what is to come. The narcissist shakes, the new supply falters, and you stand in quiet majesty, not because of confrontation, but because of stillness, not because of retaliation, but because of trust. Your journey has been protected, refined, and crowned. What was intended for harm has been transformed into blessing. What was designed to shame has been rewritten as testimony. And in that sacred space, your life reflects the ultimate truth. Divine justice unfolds in its own time, revealing the weakness of deception and the strength of faith. You have witnessed the reversal, and in that witness, your peace multiplies, extending beyond yourself to all who see, hear, and believe. This is the full measure of restoration, a gentle but unshakable triumph over the forces that sought to disrupt your path.